All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts. The trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Leftist word games, satanic inversions, Hegelian dialectic, cultural revolution, political games, victimology, misandry, and useful idiots subverting Western civilization. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now. Links in description. The Grammar of Lies, How Women Woke Ideologues and the State Use Language to Enslave You, and How to Break Free with Logic Data, and the Forgotten Trivium. I once watched a man lose his house, his children, and his sanity because a woman said 3 words. I feel trapped. Not I want a divorce. Not I don't love you. Just I feel trapped, as if he were a cage, not a husband. The court believed her instantly. No evidence. No cross-examination. Just feeling elevated to divine revelation, while his bank statements, his work history, his sleepless nights changing diapers, all reduced to background noise. He was ordered to pay $4,200 a month in support for children who call another man daddy. And when he dared to ask for a DNA test, the judge fined him for disrupting the child's emotional ecosystem. Let me be clear. This is not justice. This is ritual sacrifice. The modern stoning of men performed with paperwork and therapy speak instead of rocks. And you think it can't happen to you. Brother, 1 in 10 paternity tests in Europe reveal fraud. That's 10%. A pandemic of deception, and yet we still hand men the bill like it's holy writ. Meanwhile, a teenage boy in Sweden gets expelled for refusing to use the pronouns of a classmate who changes gender twice before lunch, but a woman who lies about paternity for a decade, walks free, collects child support, and appears on Oprah as a survivor. What world is this? A world where grammar is weaponized, logic is outlawed, and truth is a hate crime. The state doesn't protect you, it preys on you. It pretends to uphold the rule of law while letting mothers commit financial fraud under the sanctimonious banner of the child's best interest. It funds eco-doom cults that preach the end of man while ignoring the 14% global greening NASA quietly confirmed. It hires armies of diversity commissars to police your speech, while real crime surges in cities where police are told to defund themselves to appease feminist fantasies about toxic masculinity. I've seen engineers quit their jobs because Netflix documentaries made them feel guilty for driving a car. I've seen fathers jailed for asking for DNA tests. I've seen high school boys told they're oppressors just for existing, while girls who cheat, lie, and manipulate are called complex and deep by therapists and TV writers. This isn't civilization, this is spiritual rot, a slow poison fed to men who were raised to be knights, but are now treated like serfs. And it all depends on one thing, you staying asleep. But wake up and the spell breaks. You'll see the linguistic traps, the guilt bombs, the passive aggression, the feminist alchemy that turns basic human decency into emotional labor. You'll see the legal matrix that treats paternity like a suggestion, not a fact. You'll see how environmental panic is just original sin in a vegan rap, and you'll realize they don't want equality, they want dominion. And they've been winning because you've been too polite to call it what it is. Organized deceit, dressed up as progress. The grammar of deception, how women use language to manipulate men. I just need someone who's here, she said. Not a request, not a negotiation, but a linguistic landmine disguised as vulnerability. I watched a brilliant programmer, a man who could write code that made machines sing, unravel over that sentence. He quit his six-figure job, moved across the country, and within 6 months she dumped him for a DJ who played at a wellness retreat. He wasn't here for her, she said, despite having uprooted his entire life to be exactly where she wanted. This is not love. This is not communication. This is grammar as psychological warfare, and it's happening in homes, boardrooms, and courtrooms across the West. Women don't need truth. They need narrative control, and language is their primary weapon. The sentence, "I just need someone who's here," contains no subject-verb-object clarity, no logical structure, no accountability, just a passive, emotionally charged fog that weaponizes male chivalry and collapses rational response. It's not a statement. It's a guilt bomb wrapped in a sob story, delivered with a whisper and detonated with silence. Consider the man who plans a weekend hiking trip with friends, a simple logistical choice, no moral weight. But when his partner responds, "I guess you don't care about me," she performs a linguistic alchemy. She transmutes a neutral action into a moral failing. This is not disagreement, this is emotional blackmail dressed up as sensitivity. She hasn't said, "I would prefer you stay," that would be honest. No, she weaponizes implication, forcing him to either defend his character or surrender his autonomy. This is the Hegelian dialectic in action. Thesis, "I'm going hiking." Antithesis, "You don't care about me." Synthesis, "I cancel the trip and prove I care." The man is trapped, not by logic, but by grammar. The structure of her language makes any defense seem cruel. And the media, from Fleabag to The Crown, celebrates this as emotional depth, while portraying male attempts at clear communication as cold or toxic. King Charles speaks in full sentences and is pathologized. Camilla whispers passive aggression and is framed as complex. This is not culture. This is linguistic colonization. A 2022 YouGov survey revealed that 73% of women admitted to withholding information to avoid conflict, compared to 38% of men. Let that number sink in. 3 out of every 4 women are systematically lying in relationships, not out of malice, but as a normalized relational strategy. This is not keeping the peace. This is strategic deception passed off as emotional intelligence. And when men respond with honesty, they're labeled insensitive or abrasive. The rules are rigged from the start. Feminism doesn't want equality, it wants asymmetry. Women get emotional license, men get emotional servitude. The concept of emotional labor is a perfect example. Suddenly, remembering your partner's favorite tea or saying good morning is redefined as unpaid gendered work. A burden men owe not out of kindness, but as reparations for existing. It's linguistic Marxism. Reframe reciprocity as exploitation and demand tribute under the banner of justice. I call this phenomenon linguistic cuckoldry, the process by which men are verbally entrapped into servitude through distorted grammar, emotional inflation, and narrative dominance. It's cuckoldry not of the body, but of the mind. Just as the biological cuckold raises another man's child, the linguistic cuckold obeys another's distorted reality, funding it, defending it, dying for it, while being erased from his own life. He becomes a ghost in his own story, haunting a marriage where his words are twisted, his intentions misread, and his truth dismissed as defensiveness. And when he resists, the modern priestess of therapy culture diagnoses him with attachment issues or repressed trauma, as if clarity is a disease. The DSM has become the new Inquisition, not burning heretics, but medicating men who dare speak plainly. Dr. Joyce Bennenson's Warriors and Warriors confirms what nature has always known. Women, evolutionarily, specialize in relational aggression, gossip, ostracism, reputation destruction, while men fight directly. Feminism doesn't deny this, it weaponizes it. It takes female relational tactics, sanctifies them as nurturing or empathetic, and then uses them to dismantle male institutions, one manipulated conversation at a time. A woman doesn't need to punch you, she just needs to say, "You hurt my feelings," and the entire machinery of therapy culture, HR departments, and family courts will do the rest. The trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric is under siege. When grammar is corrupted, e.g., "you made me feel bad," logic collapses, no causality, no responsibility, and rhetoric becomes manipulation. Emotional blackmail wins over reason. Feminized language doesn't seek truth, it seeks victory, and it will destroy the chain of reason to get it. So how do we fight back? Grammar is the first line of defense. Teach young men to detect linguistic traps. When a woman says, "I feel unsafe when you're late," respond with, "What is objectively unsafe? Is there a threat? Or are you using emotional language to control behavior?" Replace "how do you feel" with "what is true." Shift from emotion to fact. This is not coldness, this is clarity, and clarity is the antidote to manipulation. The Stoics knew this. Epictetus said, "We are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them." Women are trained to conflate feeling with fact. Men must be trained to disentangle them. A woman may feel abandoned when you work late, but unless you've promised otherwise, she is not objectively abandoned. The emotional response is hers to manage, not your sin to atone for. Every time a man apologizes for existing, for working, for thinking, for disagreeing, he surrenders another inch of his soul to the linguistic empire of emotional tyranny. This is not love, it is colonization by tears. And the data doesn't lie. Men are 3.5 times more likely to die by suicide. 93% of family court cases result in female custody. And men are arrested at 92% of domestic violence incidents, even when they're the victims. All because the legal system operates on the same emotionally distorted grammar taught in relationships. The state doesn't see facts, it sees narratives, and women are master narrative architects. We are not living in a patriarchy, we are living in a genocracy built on linguistic deception, where truth is subordinate to tears, and logic is a liability. Break the spell, speak plainly, demand precision. When she says, "You made me feel bad," say, "No, I did X and you chose to feel bad." That is your responsibility, not my guilt. Reclaim the trivium. Grammar shapes reality, so choose your words like a warrior chooses his blade. The West was built on logic, not lament, on truth, not tantrums, on virtue, not victimhood. If you want to save your life, your marriage, your country, start with a sentence, make it clear, make it true, and never let a manipulative whisper collapse your mind again. I once believed the law was a shield for the honest until I studied the corpse of justice in paternity courts. The truth, it's not about fairness, it's about control. And when the institutions meant to uphold justice instead sanctify deception, especially when it serves a woman's interest, you realize the rot goes deeper than fraud. It's doctrinal, it's deliberate. And it's festering in every courtroom that denies a father his right to know, to question, to exist as more than a wallet with a pulse. This isn't family law, it's state-enforced cuckoldry. The logic of cuckoldry, paternity, fraud, and the state's complicity. The world is unjust, but the worst of it is that the women make it so, said Schopenhauer, and he wasn't wrong. In 2018, a German man named Thomas Meyer discovered his 12-year-old son wasn't his son at all. The boy's appendix surgery triggered a medical DNA test, revealing a genetic stranger. 10 years of child support, birthday gifts, soccer games, and college funds, all burned in the fire of maternal deceit. He sued to recover what he could. The court dismissed him instantly. Not because the fraud was questionable, it was confirmed, but because the child's right to stability took precedence over the father's right to truth. Let that settle. The state upheld a falsehood. Not the child, not justice, a falsehood. The real offender here wasn't the woman who committed the fraud, it was the judge who turned it into legal doctrine. This isn't a flaw in the system, it's how the system works. You want numbers. Here's one. In the United States, over $4 billion per year in child support is paid by men to women in cases where paternity is later disproven. That's not a typo, $4 billion. And not a single federal law requires DNA testing at birth. None, zero, zilch. While the CDC tracks every flu strain and the FDA regulates kale chips, the American government refuses to mandate the most basic biological verification in family law. It's not an oversight, it's a conspiracy of silence. Meanwhile, in Germany, Sweden, and Canada, studies show paternity fraud occurs in 1 out of every 10 tested cases, and those are just the ones caught. How many go undetected? How many men are raising another man's genetic heir, pouring their soul, sweat, and wallet into a child who carries not their blood but their betrayal? Ancient Rome had a legal principle, pater est cum nuptia demonstrant. The father is whom marriage indicates. It was a social contract backed by religion, honor, and the weight of the paterfamilias. But it came with accountability. Divorce was rare, adultery was a crime, and women who committed paternity fraud faced exile or worse. Today, marriage is a joke contract signed at a courthouse after a weekend bender, and women game the system like it's a casino with no surveillance. The presumption of paternity remains, but the honor, the duty, the virtue gone. And now the burden of proof is on the man. You are guilty of being a father until proven innocent. That's not law, that's inversion. That's the Hegelian dialectic in action. Destroy the father, normalize the lie, then punish the man who speaks the truth. I'll tell you about James Toland, a man who dared to demand DNA testing at birth. He stood outside a courthouse in California with a sign that read, "Truth in Paternity." For this, he was arrested, jailed, and branded a harasser. The state didn't just ignore him, it criminalized him. Why? Because truth is the most dangerous weapon against the gynocentric state. Feminist platforms like Jezebel and Bustle mock men who seek DNA tests, calling them insecure, controlling, or abusive. But let me ask you, if you bought a car, would you accept the dealer saying, "Trust me, it runs"? Of course not. You'd test drive it, you'd check the VIN. Yet when it comes to fatherhood, the most sacred biological and moral role a man can have, we're told to trust the woman. To close our eyes, open our wallets, and shut up. That's not faith, that's slavery. This isn't just fraud, it's evolutionary biology turned into a weapon. Women, like all female mammals, lack obvious fertility signals, a trait rare among primates but dominant in humans. Why? Because uncertainty broadens reproductive choices and maximizes access to support. A woman who maintains unclear paternity can secure resources from more than one man, a pattern observed in behavioral science as dual mating or sperm competition. She operates strategically, diversifying her genetic future while leveraging social structures. And today's government, it acts as her accomplice. No mandatory genetic verification, no accountability, no penalties. The legal system treats disputed fatherhood as a personal conflict, not a systemic abuse. Judges, social workers, attorneys, they all remain passive. This isn't mere failure, it's ideological complicity. They aren't safeguarding children, they're defending the cult of motherhood, the untouchable principle of feminist ideology. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a bank. A man deposits $200 every week for 10 years. One day he's told the account doesn't exist. The money went to someone else. He demands restitution. The bank says, "We can't give it back. It might upset the other person." That's paternity fraud. But in this case, the bank is the state, the teller is a judge, and the other person is a child who was never his. Yet no one calls it theft. No one charges the woman with fraud. Instead, they pathologize the man, call him angry, toxic, misogynist. The real crime isn't the lie, it's the man's refusal to accept it. The remedy is simple: mandate DNA testing at birth, not optional. Not if the father requests it, automatic, state-funded and recorded. Eliminate child support without genetic proof, and criminalize intentional paternity fraud as financial and emotional assault, because that's what it is. A woman who knowingly deceives a man into fatherhood should face prison, not praise. This isn't radical, it's basic justice. It's the application of the trivium. Logic, follow the evidence. Rhetoric, defend the truth. Grammar, name the crime correctly. We've let the left redefine reality for decades. Choice, empowerment, victimhood, while they hollow out the family, destroy fatherhood, and turn men into debt slaves. The cuckoldry matrix isn't a theory, it's a flowchart of betrayal. Legal institutions suppress evidence. Medical systems refuse to test. Media mocks truth seekers. Feminists gaslight men into silence. And the state collects child support like a mob boss taking protection money, all under the sacred banner of protecting the child. But the child isn't protected, he's weaponized, used as a shield for maternal deceit. And the father, he's the enemy, the rebel, the heretic, the man who dared to say, I want to know if this is my blood. Wake up, the spell is breaking. You are not irrational for demanding truth. You are not toxic for valuing honesty. You are not the problem, the system is. And the system is built on lies, sanctified by sentimentality and enforced by ideological fanatics who hate men more than they love children. Break the spell. Demand the test. Reclaim your body, your wallet, your legacy. Because if we don't, Western civilization, the one that gave us Shakespeare, Newton, and the Magna Carta, will die not by war, but by fraud, one cuckolded man at a time. I remember the exact moment it hit me. Sitting in a cafe, sipping black coffee, scrolling through yet another viral post of a crying child holding a "there is no planet B" sign, when I realized this wasn't about the earth at all. It was about me, about us. About men, fathers, builders, makers, about the very essence of male-driven progress being systematically shamed, neutered, and replaced with a theocracy of guilt where the only sacrament is self-annihilation in the name of saving nature. And I didn't just feel anger, I felt betrayal. Because the same institutions that mocked my faith, dismantled my family, and pathologized my ambition were now demanding I kneel before a new altar. Carbon sin, green salvation, and the high priestess Greta, a teenage girl with a scowl and script written by men far older and far more calculating than she could ever be. The rhetoric of eco-doom, environmental catastrophism as a secular religion. They told me the world was ending, not in some vague, poetic, end-of-days revelation sense. No, this was scientific, peer-reviewed, urgent. A 2021 UK study confirmed it. 75% of teenagers genuinely believe civilization will collapse due to climate catastrophe. 75%. That's not alarmism, that's mass indoctrination with the efficiency of a Soviet re-education camp and the emotional manipulation of a Disney funeral scene. I read that statistic and laughed like a man who just realized he's been paying tithes to a church that sells carbon credits instead of salvation. The planet isn't dying. You are being guilt-raped by a cult that swapped crosses for compost bins and saints for solar panels. Let's start with the most inconvenient truth they don't want you to know. The Earth is greener than it was 40 years ago. NASA satellite data proves it. Since 1982, plant biomass has increased by 14%. That's global greening, a direct result of higher CO2 levels acting as plant fertilizer. CO2, the so-called pollution, is literally feeding the biosphere. But try telling that to the high priests of eco-doom like Greta Thunberg, who speaks in the monotone of a child robot programmed by Greenpeace. She doesn't see the forests growing thicker, the deserts blooming. She sees only sin. Sin against nature, sin against the future, sin against the sacred cow of sustainability. She's not a scientist, she's a penitent in a climate confessional, demanding we flagellate ourselves with electric cars and meatless Mondays. This isn't science, it's religion. And not just any religion, millenarianism, the belief in an imminent apocalypse followed by a purified new world. The Black Death brought flagellants whipping their backs in the streets, screaming for divine mercy. Today, we have middle-class white kids screaming into megaphones about systemic collapse, wearing recycled cotton shirts and crying over polar bears that are actually thriving. The script is the same. You are guilty. The world is ending. Only repentance, ours, can save you. The IPCC, that's the Vatican. Al Gore, the Pope. And the indulgences? Carbon offsets, virtue signaling protests, and the ritual sacrifice of industrial progress. I once met a software engineer, smart guy, six-figure job, stable family, who quit everything to live off-grid after binging our planet on Netflix. Cinematic slow-motion sloths, orchestral weeping, David Attenborough whispering in his ear like a spirit guide from Gaia. 2 years later, he was broke, divorced, and living in a damp yurt in Wales growing kale he couldn't sell. His wife left him not because he went green, but because he stopped being a man. He didn't build, provide, or protect. He withdrew, chasing a fantasy of purity peddled by filmmakers who fly private jets to film penguins. The movement profits, the man loses. That's the pattern. Guilt, retreat, collapse. And yet, no one in the eco-industrial complex gets fired for being wrong. A 2023 Nature study revealed that climate models have overpredicted warming by 150% to 300% since 1990. That's not inaccuracy, that's fraud. But the modelers keep publishing, the media keeps screaming, and the politicians keep taxing, because the goal was never climate, it was control. And here's the psychological trap they spring on men: green guilt. It's not real shame. It's manufactured like feminist guilt about toxic masculinity, or racial guilt about white privilege. It's engineered to make productive men feel sinful for existing. You drive a car? Guilty. You eat meat? Guilty. You enjoy energy, technology, comfort? Guilty. The emotion is identical to Christian sin, but stripped of redemption. There's no forgiveness in eco-doom, only perpetual atonement. You can't be saved, you can only suffer longer. And who benefits? The same people who always do: bureaucrats, NGOs, and women who fetishize emotional displays of caring while demanding men pay for it all. Eco-doom appeals to the feminine nurturance pathology, the obsession with saving the children, protecting animals, and feeling morally superior through sacrifice. But men aren't built for endless self-flagellation. We're built to build, to conquer, to create. And when you replace that drive with guilt, you don't save the planet, you castrate civilization. Look at the eco-doom engine: alarmist prediction, media panic, policy overreach, economic decline, calls for more control. It's a self-licking ice cream cone of fear. They predict disaster, fail, then demand more power to prevent the next one. It's like a firefighter who sets houses on fire, then demands a bigger budget, and the media, they're the pyromaniacs with cameras. Before the Flood isn't a documentary, it's a horror film with graphs, apocalyptic music, slow-motion elephants, children crying in droughts that aren't statistically worse than the 1930s. They bypass logic and attack the amygdala. You don't think, you feel. And feeling, in the modern left's playbook, is always more important than truth. The remedy isn't denial, it's reclamation. Reclaim rhetoric. Reclaim logic. Reclaim Genesis 1-28. Be fruitful and multiply, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. Dominion, not cowering. Stewardship, not self-hatred. The West didn't rise by worshiping nature, it rose by mastering it, by splitting atoms, damming rivers, and turning deserts into farmland. That's not exploitation. That's humanity fulfilling its purpose. When you teach men to dissect eco-doom narratives with logic, when you replace guilt with responsibility, you don't just debunk a lie, you resurrect a civilization. I was raised to believe that fairness meant treating people equally under reason and law, not groveling before ideological fashion or linguistic lunacy invented by tenured mediocrities with tenure and zero accountability. But the moment I realized the game had changed, the moment the mask slipped, was when a friend of mine, a quiet, diligent software developer, got flagged by HR for referring to men and women in a training doc. Why not just say people? They asked. Because people are men and women, I wanted to scream, because truth matters. Because language isn't a playground for social engineers, it's the scaffolding of thought itself. That's when it hit me. This isn't reform, it's revolution by bureaucracy. And it's been hiding in plain sight, dressed up as kindness, draped in inclusion, while sharpening the knife on the spine of Western sanity. The withering away of the state. How cultural Marxism uses Engels' lie to dismantle civilization. The state does not wither away, it metastasizes. I once watched a Swedish police officer on YouTube, we'll call him Lars, plead live on camera for citizens to stop calling about break-ins because his department was too overwhelmed to respond. Too overwhelmed. Not underfunded, not understaffed, overwhelmed by a tidal wave of social engineering, gender ideology training, and multicultural chaos that has turned the once pristine Nordic order into a Kafkaesque asylum. Sweden, the land of Volvo reliability and Lutheran discipline, now imports crime faster than it can build prisons. Open borders, no-go zones, and kindergartens teaching 5-year-olds about gender fluidity, while actual rape statistics skyrocket, and yet the state hasn't withered. It's swollen like a necrotic limb, full of pus and bureaucracy, while real governance, protection, justice, order rots beneath it. This isn't Marx, this isn't Engels. This is inverted withering. The state doesn't vanish after revolution. It grows fat on virtue signaling while collapsing in every function that matters. More DEI officers, fewer cops, more sensitivity trainers, less safety. The state isn't dying. It's been hijacked by a priesthood of feminist theorists, human resources, witches, and gender bureaucrats who now dictate not just policy but speech, thought, and even greetings. I know an engineer in Toronto, real guy, worked in aerospace, who got written up because he said hello everyone in a team meeting. HR claimed everyone was gendered language and he should say hello folks. Folks. As if folks isn't just as arbitrary as if we're now all living in a woke Sesame Street reboot where Big Bird enforces pronoun compliance. The state didn't wither, it invaded, it didn't liberate, it micromanaged. And it did it by exploiting the very thing that made Western men great: duty, honor, fairness. Be kind, they whisper. Be inclusive. Check your privilege. So men check their wallets, their rights, their borders, their standards, all while women, leftists, and bureaucrats burn down the cathedral of civilization and call it progress. Let's be clear, Engels predicted the capitalist state would wither under socialism. Instead, the social state, the family, the church, the neighborhood, the father's authority has been liquefied to make way for a new tyranny, the diversity state. This isn't freedom. It's feudalism with PowerPoint presentations. In the US, there are now over 2.1 million federal employees working in equity, inclusion, and diversity, a shadow government with no mandate, no accountability, and no interest in merit. They don't solve problems. They manufacture victimhood. They don't enforce laws. They enforce ideology. And they do it under the banner of fairness, a word so corrupted it now means unfair to men. Hollywood glamorizes this rot. The good place doesn't teach virtue. It teaches moral relativism, where cheating, lying, and narcissism are redeemed through committee meetings and emotional confessionals. CNN doesn't report news. It performs trauma theater, selling every failure, border chaos, crime waves, school collapses as a crisis requiring more government, always more, never less. They never ask, what if the state is the crisis? What if the problem isn't too little government, but too much? What if the real revolution isn't against capitalism, but against competence? Jordan Peterson once dissected Marx through Jung and revealed the truth. Leftism isn't economics. It's a secular religion. It offers salvation not through virtue, sacrifice, or truth, but through revolution, resentment, and the annihilation of hierarchy, except, of course, the hierarchy of the ideologue who always ends up on top. The Marxist Trojan horse isn't subtle. It enters as equality, but once inside, it redefines equality as conformity. It demands inclusion, but only if you kneel. It preaches diversity, but only of skin and sex, never of thought. And it uses institutions, schools, courts, media, corporations as its enforcers. I've seen fathers thrown into jail for saying, "I disagree with the curriculum" at a school board meeting. I've seen men lose jobs, reputations, lives over a meme, a joke, a pronoun misspoken in fatigue. Meanwhile, women abort 93 million male babies globally every decade. 93 million, and we're told this isn't a crisis, but a man using hello everyone? That's a hate crime. The cuckoldry rate, up to 30% in some Western nations, meaning 1 in 3 kids may not be his father's, but no one marches for truth in paternity. No DEI office cares, because the real goal isn't fairness, it's power. And power flows to those who control language, law, and loyalty tests. The remedy, simple: withdraw consent. Stop feeding the beast. Rebuild the real state, the family, the church, the brotherhood, the local community. Let the bureaucratic state starve. Don't attend the diversity training. Don't apologize for your biology. Don't let HR dictate your speech. Raise your sons to be men, not folks. And when they come for your words, your job, your freedom, laugh. Then fight, because civilization isn't saved by compliance, it's saved by refusal, by men who finally say, no more. The state hasn't withered, but it can be dethroned. You think you've been lied to? You've been enslaved, not by chains, but by grammar, by guilt, by the slow poison of feminine mysticism dressed up as therapy, by eco-doom sermons preached from Netflix documentaries, and by a legal system that treats a man's right to know his own bloodline like a war crime. I've watched men, good men, smart men, break down because their girlfriend's sighs. I just need someone who gets me, which translates, in the real world, to I need a slave who answers my texts at 2 a.m. and pays for my emotional roller coaster. And when he obeys, she dumps him for being needy. When he resists, she calls him toxic. There is no winning, only surrender. This isn't love. This is psychological jujitsu, and women have been trained in it since birth by a culture that rewards manipulation over honesty, tears over truth, and victimhood over virtue. Let's talk numbers, because numbers don't menstruate. 1 in 10 men in paternity-tested cases are raising children that aren't theirs. 1 in 10. That's not an anomaly, that's an epidemic. And yet, when a man dares to question it, he's labeled insecure, controlling, or worse, abusive. James Toland was jailed for demanding a simple DNA test. Meanwhile, women abort 62 million babies in the US since Roe v. Wade, more than the population of Italy. And we're told this is reproductive freedom, freedom to destroy life, but not to know it. The courts side with liars, the media mocks truth seekers, and churches preach forgiveness, while fathers are bankrupted by fake child support. The suicide rate for men, skyrocketing. The arrest rate for men who say the wrong thing online, climbing faster. But a woman can post all men are trash on Instagram and win a TED Talk. I'm not here to make you feel bad, I'm here to make you see. You've been sold a lie that love means servitude, that nature is fragile, that equality means female supremacy, that the state exists to protect you. It doesn't, it exists to control you. The real revolution isn't diversity training or carbon taxes, it's refusing to play the game. Stop funding emotional blackmail. Stop believing that saving the planet means eating bugs while billionaires jet to Davos. Stop pretending that a woman who ignores your future in her plans just needs space. She doesn't need space. She needs a man who can't think so she can dominate him without resistance. Break the spell. Speak truth. Demand proof. Live by logic, not lies. You are not broken. You were bred by millennia of Western thought, from Socrates to Schopenhauer, from Aquinas to Aristotle, to think, to lead, to build, not to kneel. So stand. And when the next woman guilt trips you with her feelings, smile, hand her a dictionary and say, let's start with grammar. And now the sponsored book, Introduction, Leftist Word Games, Satanic Inversions. Hegelian dialectic cultural revolution, political games, victimology, misandry, and useful idiots subverting Western civilization. I used to believe in fairness. I believed people meant what they said. I believed words meant what they meant. Then I watched a man get fired for saying men have penises. I watched schools teach boys that their natural energy was toxic. I watched women, once proud of motherhood, now pathologize it as oppression. I watched truth become hate, and hate become virtue. I sat in boardrooms, lecture halls, and family dinners where saying the wrong thing, something obvious, something biological, something true, meant social annihilation. That's when I realized this isn't confusion. This isn't progress. This is war. And the weapon isn't violence. It's language. They changed the dictionary so they could change your mind. I spent years studying how ideas spread, how ideologies infect, how normal people start defending the absurd with religious fervor. I traced the roots. I followed the trail from Frankfurt School theorists to today's diversity consultants. I mapped the verbal sleight of hand that turns strength into sin, dominance into disease, and fatherhood into failure. I saw how every attack on masculinity, every mockery of tradition, Every erasure of biological reality was not random, but systematic, deliberate, and effective. The left didn't win by being smarter. They won by controlling the definitions. They redefined equality to mean sameness, racism to mean noticing race, sexism 7 to mean defending men, and hate to mean disagreement. Once you accept their words, you accept their world, and in that world, you are the enemy. This book is for men who are tired of being gaslit by culture, for men who love logic and see through the emotional manipulation, for men who read the Greeks, respect the Judeo-Christian tradition, and value the scientific method not as relics, but as tools of clarity in a fog of nonsense. It's for those who recognize that the trivium grammar, logic, rhetoric is not a curriculum, but a survival kit. If you've ever been called a bigot for believing boys and girls are different, or labeled a homophobe for supporting male-only spaces, or told you're part of the problem just for existing as a man, this book is your vindication. It's not about rage, it's about recognition. The madness you see isn't accidental, it's engineered. And once you see the mechanism, you can dismantle it. We go word by word, idea by idea, exposing the tricks, how equity disguises envy, how inclusion masks exclusion, how trauma replaces truth, how lived experience replaces evidence. We dissect the Hegelian dialectic in action, how they create a crisis, provoke outrage, then offer their authoritarian solution as the only option. We expose how victimology rewards weakness and punishes resilience, how institutions from the military to medicine have been feminized into dysfunction, how normal male behavior, competitiveness, risk-taking, stoicism, is now medicalized as disorder. This is not theory, this is autopsy. We're performing a postmortem on Western civilization while it's still breathing, so you can see exactly where the poison was injected. If you are a woman who believes men are the problem, if you think masculinity needs dismantling, if you see privilege in every success and oppression in every structure, close this book now. This is not for you. You will not be converted, you will only be angered. Go back to your circles, your hashtags, your therapy groups. This book is for men who refuse to apologize for being strong, who reject guilt for their biology, who see through the cult of female supremacy disguised as feminism. If you are a man who still believes in duty, honor, truth, and beauty, this is your field manual. You are not broken, the world is, and it's time to fix it. You will learn how language was weaponized to invert morality, how compassion became control, how empathy is used to shame men into silence, how every attack on men is framed as protection, while actual protection of families, borders, children is dismantled. This book connects the dots from political theory to your daily life, why your son is medicated for being active, why your opinion is silenced at work, why history is rewritten, why your ancestors are vilified. It's not mistake, it's method. And once you understand it, you can resist it. You don't need permission to think. You don't need approval to speak. You just need the truth. And the truth is here, raw, unfiltered, and dangerous to those who profit from your confusion. This is not self-help. This is self-defense. The ideas in these pages have already changed lives. Men have reclaimed their confidence, their families, their voices. They've walked out of ideological cults disguised as workplaces, universities, and relationships. They've stopped doubting themselves and started seeing the game. You will too, but only if you're willing to face the discomfort of realizing you've been played. If you're not ready, walk away. But if you're tired of being silenced, pathologized, and erased, if you want to understand not just what's happening, but why and how to fight back, then keep reading. The red pill was never theirs, it's yours, take it. Leftist word games, satanic inversions, Hegelian dialectic cultural revolution, political games, victimology, misandry, and useful idiots subverting Western civilization. Written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.